As we embark on this journey, I must caution you that the tale ahead delves into mature themes. The narrative unfolds the trials of new motherhood, the complexities of family ties, and the shadows cast by infidelity. If these subjects stir unease within you, it may be wise to turn away now. Brooke Sheridan, a name that carries the weight of 42 years of life and experience. At first glance, my life may seem unconventional, a tapestry woven with threads of the unexpected. Yet, in the depths of my journey, I have come to embrace it, accepting each twist and turn for the unique story it tells. If someone had whispered to me a decade ago that my life would take such an unexpected turn, I would have laughed heartily, brushing it off as a ridiculous gist. Never in my wildest dreams would I have believed you. Yet, here I find myself, perched at my kitchen table on a still morning, my mind wandering as I gaze into the depths of a half-empty cup of coffee. As I delve into the tangled web of the past 10 years, I find myself on a relentless quest for understanding, sifting through the chaos of events that have unfolded. Each moment feels like a fragment of a larger puzzle, elusive and challenging to grasp. Yet I am determined to uncover the hidden truths that lie within. For the last 8 years, it has been only me and my son, Mason, navigating the world together. Since the divorce, we've been forging our path together, battling against a world that seems determined to keep us down. It all started with a moment that shattered everything. The day his father walked out, leaving a void that echoed through the silence of their home. At just 10 years old, Mason stood on the precipice of a world brimming with untold adventures. He stood there, his eyes betraying nothing, a stoic mask firmly in place. Not a single tear fell before me, as it never did. Yet it was in the nuanced manner of his movements that I could discern the truth. His quiet, longing gaze drifted out the window, a silent vigil for a father who would never return. Deep down he understood the truth. Each day he stood in anticipation. Each day I witnessed the weight of disappointment gradually etch itself onto his face as he awaited the return of his father, a shadow of hope fading with each passing moment. On the day his father walked away, I vowed to myself that everything would change. In that moment, a fierce determination ignited within me, a vow that I would move mountains to ensure Mason would never know the sting of solitude. I would be the unwavering anchor in his life, ensuring he experienced the comforting embrace of family, even if it was just the two of us against the world. That promise has become the bedrock of my existence, the unwavering force that propels me forward, even when shadows loom and despair threatens to engulf me. Though the journey has been fraught with challenges, I have fought to forge a sanctuary for him, pouring every ounce of love and unwavering support into our bond, standing strong against whatever storms life may unleash upon us. For what felt like an eternity, I was convinced I had everything under control. Mason was a remarkable child, gentle and unassuming, always seeking opportunities to lend a hand around the house. He possessed a quiet gentleness, an aura that set him apart from the other children, drawing attention like a beacon in the night. Yet, as the years passed, a transformation began to unfold. He began to transform in ways that eluded my understanding, and if I'm being entirely truthful, I could feel the stirrings of change within myself as well. Mason reached the age of 18 this year, a momentous occasion that resonated deeply for both of us. He stands on the precipice of adulthood, a young man grappling with the weight of his own identity. Yet, in quiet moments, I catch myself wondering if he's still searching for the essence of what it truly means to be a man. The shift is anything but obvious, and I can sense the turmoil within him as he grapples with it. From a young age, he carried an air of quietness, a subtle mystery that set him apart from others. He felt no pull to be surrounded by other kids, never craved the raucous, frenzied exchanges that captivated most of his peers. He rarely ventures outside, finding solace in the stillness of his sanctuary. He lacks the kind of close friends one might anticipate a young man to have. Each time I approach him, a knot tightens in my stomach. I search for the right words, hoping to uncover the truth behind his distant gaze. Is he lonely? Lost in a world that feels too heavy? But every attempt to reach out is met with a nonchalant shrug, his casual "I'm fine" hanging in the air like a haunting echo, leaving me more worried than before. Yet I understand him far more deeply than he realizes. I can sense that he's far from fine. A mother possesses an instinctive knowledge, an unwavering certainty that lingers even when her child attempts to sway her with words of doubt. About a month ago, Mason approached me with a revelation that took me completely off guard. A truth I was utterly unprepared to confront. The evening had settled into a hushed stillness, just the two of us enveloped in the dim glow of the living room. Then, without warning, he began to reveal himself in a way that took me completely by surprise. He confessed to me, his voice trembling, that he had been taking my personal belongings without permission. Initially, a haze of confusion enveloped me. Confusion enveloped me as I struggled to grasp his words. My mind raced, unable to decipher the meaning behind them. And in that moment, as the realization struck me, as the true gravity of his words sank in, it felt as if the very ground beneath my feet had vanished into thin air. A surge of frustration welled up inside me, a desperate urge to scream, to confront him, and unravel the tangled thoughts that had led him to believe that was acceptable. Yet, I chose not to. Instead, I remained rooted to the spot, a spectator in my own life, my eyes locked onto him. In that fleeting moment, he appeared diminutive, engulfed by a profound sense of shame and an overwhelming embarrassment that seemed to consume him. His gaze fell to the ground, deliberately steering clear of my own. His shoulders slumped in a manner that stirred a deep longing within me. The boy who had once radiated eagerness to assist, overflowing with a gentle kindness, now sat in silence, weighed down by an unseen burden that eluded my understanding. And in that fleeting moment, a revelation struck me with the force of a thunderclap. This was far more than merely the sum of his actions. It transcended the mere actions, the visceral shock, or the simmering anger that might have coursed through me. It was a profound truth, an unspoken weight that pressed upon him, a feeling that danced just beyond the reach of his words, a secret he feared to voice. It was a tale woven with threads of struggle, a labyrinth of confusion, an echo of loneliness, and a shadow of fear that loomed over him. In that moment, I found myself sitting beside him, grappling not only with the stark reality of what had transpired, but also with the heavy, unspoken emotions he bore, feelings that lingered in the silence, waiting for a voice he had yet to find. He was neither a pervert nor a monster. He was my son, and he was fighting a battle within himself. Wrestling with emotions that eluded his grasp, he found himself at the mercy of uncontrollable urges. In that moment, I stood at a crossroads, torn between the weight of his despair and the burden of my own conscience. I knew I had to act, to shield him from further pain, so I made a choice that would change everything. In that moment, I struck a deal with him. I warned him that he could pursue his desires, but there would be boundaries he must respect. He could find some relief, but it meant doing so right before my eyes. In that moment, I knew I had to keep him close, to guard him against the dangers that lurked just beyond the edges of his choices. In return, I asked him to respect my privacy when I had guests over, just as I respected his. Mason appears to have shed his tension, a newfound calmness enveloping him. He remains quiet, yet there's a shift. He no longer shies away from my presence as he once did. What about me? I've begun to understand that this arrangement holds significance beyond just him. It's meant for me as well. It grants me the liberation I've longed for, the liberation to embrace my existence without the constant need to tread lightly around him. In the stillness of the night, I find myself wide awake, grappling with the haunting question of whether I truly made the right choice. What would they say if they uncovered the truth? Would they label me a terrible mother? A complete failure? Perhaps they would, but they have yet to grasp the true essence of Mason. They remain oblivious to the anguish of witnessing their child in pain, helpless and desperate, with no solution in sight. They remain oblivious to the struggle of clinging to sanity, teetering on the edge, desperately fighting to avoid the inevitable collapse. The uncertainty of what lies ahead for us looms like a shadow, heavy and foreboding. Uncertainty looms over this arrangement, a fragile balance teetering on the edge, like a ticking time bomb ready to explode at any moment. Yet, for the moment, this is the reality we inhabit. This is the path we've taken, and despite its chaos and complexity, I am pouring every ounce of my effort into making it work for him, for both of us. If you've journeyed this far, remember to give this video a thumbs up, share your reflections in the comments, and subscribe for more captivating tales like this one. Believe me, A vast world of secrets awaits to be revealed. The deal unfolded in a way I never anticipated. I hadn't fully considered the implications. It unfolded in an instant. One moment, I was sitting there, grappling with the weight of what Mason had shared, and the next the words erupted from my lips, as if they were possessed by a force beyond my control. "You can continue with your plans," I said. "But there are certain things I require in exchange." His gaze pierced through me, as if I had just uttered words from a distant realm. His face drained of color, and his hands tightened into fists on the kitchen table, a storm brewing within him. For a fleeting moment, I was convinced he would rise and stride out the door. Perhaps I longed for him to. Perhaps a part of me longed for him to refuse, to dismiss my thoughts as madness and leave the room in a whirlwind of anger. Yet he chose not to. He remained frozen in place, his gaze locked onto mine, his lips parting and closing as if caught in a silent struggle to find the right words. "What do you mean?" he finally asked, his voice trembling, barely above a whisper, as if he feared the truth lurking in the shadows of the answer. I inhaled deeply, filling my lungs with the weight of the moment. "You can continue, but it must be in my presence. In exchange, I seize the chance to carve out my existence on my own terms. I can invite others into the house, without you uttering a single word about it." Silence reigned, a sanctuary free from scrutiny or inquiry. "We both walk away with what we desire. Understood?" The air hung heavy with an unsettling stillness that followed, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Mason remained silent, his thoughts swirling like a tempest within him. His gaze bore into me. Brow deeply furrowed, lips drawn tight into a thin line. His expression shifted as he grappled with my words, the weight of their meaning settling in, searching for clarity in the chaos of his thoughts. I found myself caught in the same relentless cycle. The words lingered in the air, suspended between us, and I knew there was no way to reclaim them. I couldn't shake the uncertainty that lingered within me. At last, he gave a slight nod, a subtle movement, almost imperceptible yet laden with meaning. "Okay," he whispered, his voice barely rising above the silence, almost lost in the air around us. "If that is truly what you desire." And that was the moment everything changed. That was the pact sealed in shadows. The first time it happened, a wave of nausea crashed over me, threatening to pull me under. I perched on the edge of my bed, my heart racing wildly, palms slick with sweat. I convinced myself this was what he truly needed, that it was far better than the dark alternative lurking in the shadows, that every choice I made was for his sake. Yet, beneath the surface, a nagging certainty whispered that the truth was far more complex. It never truly is. Mason stepped into the room, his gaze fixed firmly on the ground beneath him. Silence hung heavily between us, an unspoken tension that neither of us dared to break. Our eyes never truly met, not in any meaningful way. I remained frozen in my seat, feigning indifference as if the chaos around me was merely a figment of imagination, just another ordinary day slipping through my fingers. And when it came to an end, he walked away, departed in silence. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as I remained frozen in place, unable to stir. I sat there, my gaze fixed on the wall, battling the tumult within me, desperately trying to assure myself that all was well, that this was indeed okay. It's peculiar how quickly one can adapt to the most unusual circumstances. Initially, each moment struck like a brutal blow to the stomach. Yet, as the days turned into weeks, a subtle ease began to weave its way through the struggle. Or perhaps I simply honed the art of masking the turmoil within. I convinced myself it was harmless, merely an unconventional choice. I convinced myself I was being pragmatic, that I was turning a dire circumstance into something manageable. For a fleeting moment, I was convinced. Mason, however, unfolded a tale all his own. He put on a brave face, but the truth was etched in his eyes. The shame, the guilt, a storm brewing beneath the surface. He kept it buried deep within, a silent torment that gnawed at his soul. I could feel the weight of his self-loathing, the desperate need for me that he could never voice. Each time I caught that expression on his face, it shattered my heart just a bit further. But what was I meant to do? He was my son, the sole light of my life. Turning my back on him was not an option. I couldn't bear the thought of him sinking beneath the weight of his own emotions while I remained a mere spectator. With determination coursing through my veins, I donned my bravest mask and forged ahead into the unknown. For him, for me, for us. This was about rebuilding trust, not crossing lines, where every heartbeat echoed with the weight of our shared destinies. Doubt gnaws at me, a relentless whisper in the back of my mind, questioning every choice I've made. On most days, uncertainty clouds my mind, leading me to question what the right path truly is. Yet here we stand. We're still figuring things out, but therapy has helped us see a healthier path forward. Initially, it felt remarkably similar. Mason clung to the routine, if one could even dare to label it as such, at dawn, and occasionally as dusk falls. It unfolded in unexpected ways, yet it remained within reach. I convinced myself this was merely a fleeting moment, that he would soon grow weary of it, that the excitement would fade as the allure diminished. Yet, I was mistaken. Rather than easing off, it surged forward with relentless intensity. At first, the morning crept forward, gradually surrendering to the embrace of the afternoon, which in turn melted into the depths of night. Then, 2 mornings unfolded in succession. As I observed, the hours and days began to spin rapidly around this intricate arrangement, each moment intertwining with the next in a dizzying dance. The air in the house hung thick with unspoken agreements, leaving us with fewer stretches of normality, fewer moments when the weight of our decisions didn't press down on us. I fought to dismiss it, to bury it deep within the recesses of my thoughts, yet it clung to me, an ever-present specter in the corners of my mind. As I stood there, hands buried in a pile of freshly laundered clothes, an unsettling feeling crept over me for the first time. Mason entered the room, silence enveloping him like a shroud. His face was a mask of tension, every muscle in his body coiled tight, radiating an unspoken urgency. Before he uttered a single word, I could sense his desire lurking in the shadows, palpable and undeniable. I set the clothes aside and perched on the edge of the couch, anticipation coursing through me as I waited for him to finish. Yet this time, an unsettling shift lingered in the air. He didn't merely walk away when it all came to an end. He hesitated, looking at me with a mix of emotions I couldn't quite decipher, yet remained frustratingly out of reach. A knot formed in my stomach, the gravity of the moment bearing down on me like an unyielding stone. "Are you all right?" I inquired, my voice barely above a whisper, betraying more vulnerability than I had meant to reveal. He nodded, yet the truth flickered in his eyes, a silent storm brewing beneath the surface. The weight of the moment had shifted. It was no longer about finding solace. It was something beyond mere existence. That night, sleep eluded me. The ceiling loomed above me, a blank canvas for the relentless replay of the day's events, each moment etched in vivid detail, haunting my thoughts. I tried to silence the doubts swirling in my mind, convincing myself that I was merely conjuring shadows. Yet beneath the surface, a truth pulsed with undeniable clarity. This wasn't just a phase anymore. It was turning into an unhealthy pattern that worried me deeply. The hardest truth hit me. We needed professional help to navigate the situation. In the days that followed, Mason's emotional state began to reflect the stress he was under, and he found himself unable to keep his feelings hidden. It became clear that he needed more support, which led us to seek therapy as a way to address the tension in our relationship. Our initial understanding seemed to have broken down completely, leaving us both lost and confused. Perhaps it truly was. Hadn't I granted him the freedom to pursue this path? It all began with a simple mistake, a playful jab that slipped out before I could catch it. The aroma of simmering spices filled the kitchen as I busied myself with dinner preparations, unaware of the moment that would change everything. Then, he stepped through the doorway, and time seemed to freeze. A shiver ran down my spine as I sensed his gaze fixed upon me, each movement I made under the weight of his watchful eyes. Uncertainty gnawed at me, a relentless whisper in the back of my mind. I couldn't fathom the reasons behind my actions. Perhaps I sought to shatter the silence that hung between us, or maybe I was probing his limits, curious to discover just how far he would push the boundaries. In a moment of impulse, I shrugged off my jacket, allowing it to cascade onto the counter with a soft thud. His breath caught in his throat, and I pivoted to meet his gaze, a subtle smile playing at the edge of my lips. "Is something amiss?" I inquired, feigning ignorance to the way his cheeks burned with color. Silence hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. He remained unresponsive. He pivoted sharply, his back to the room, and strode out, leaving an air of tension in his wake. Yet, the intensity of his gaze clung to me, haunting the air long after he had vanished from sight. From that moment on, it transformed into a thrilling contest. I'd gather my hair, allowing it to cascade just so, while my shirt slipped up, teasingly high, and my jeans hung unfastened, lingering in a state of reckless abandon. Nothing explicit, nothing overt, just a subtle tension that coiled in the air, enough to make him squirm, to instill a moment of hesitation before he turned away. For a brief moment, I felt a strange sense of influence over the situation, one that immediately made me uncomfortable. Yet, as each day slipped away, the boundary that once defined us began to fade, intertwining our fates in ways we never anticipated. He started seeking my constant attention in ways that felt increasingly inappropriate. And I, him, whispered to myself that it was harmless, that it held no significance. Yet, deep down, I found myself lost in uncertainty, questioning the very essence of its meaning. Doubt gnawed at my mind, leaving me adrift in a sea of uncertainty. In the stillness of a late evening, a pivotal moment unfolded, bringing everything to a dramatic climax. Mason sat across from me in the dimly lit living room, his gaze locked onto me as I immersed myself in the pages of a book. The air between us grew heavy with unaddressed issues that needed to be confronted. As I lifted my eyes to his, our gazes locked in an unspoken connection, and for the first time, I held my gaze steady, refusing to turn away. He didn't either. The silence loomed between us, thick and oppressive, until I mustered the courage to clear my throat and rise to my feet. "I'm going to bed," I murmured, my voice barely rising above a whisper, as if the shadows themselves might overhear. He nodded, yet I sensed his gaze piercing through me as I turned to leave. Uncertainty loomed over us, a heavy fog that obscured the path we had taken. How had we arrived at this moment, standing on the precipice of the unknown? How did I allow it to spiral out of control like this? Yet here we stand, ensnared in a relentless cycle, the way out shrouded in uncertainty. Despite my desperate attempts to cling to a sense of control, an unsettling realization gnaws at me. I fear I have already surrendered it all. Everything began to unravel the moment Ethan Foster stepped into our lives. It was a chance encounter, a fleeting moment orchestrated by a mutual friend. One of those seemingly inconsequential introductions that linger in the shadows of memory, waiting for the right moment to reveal their significance. Yet, Enrique was not a man who could slip away from your memory. He possessed a charm that seemed to flow naturally, as if he effortlessly wove joy into the air around him, making smiles bloom without a single effort. His laughter resonated through the space, a rich and inviting sound that wrapped around me like a comforting embrace. In that moment, I felt a weight lift, as if, for the first time in ages, I could finally lower my defenses and breathe freely. Enrique began to appear with increasing frequency. Initially, it was merely a casual dinner or a drink on the back porch, but before long, he found himself staying well into the night, lingering in the living room long after Mason had slipped away to his room. And then, one fateful night, he chose to stay, shattering the silence that had once enveloped him. I made no effort to conceal it from Mason. That was never part of our agreement, was it? Yet, I couldn't shake the haunting expression that crossed his face the following morning, when he discovered Enrique at the kitchen table, casually sipping coffee, as if he belonged there all along. A quiet storm brewed beneath the surface, and I could sense it in my son. The tension coiled in his jaw, the way his fingers gripped the plate with an intensity that spoke volumes, betraying the turmoil he tried to conceal. Initially, Mason remained silent. He lingered at the periphery, a silent shadow, brooding and withdrawn. As the weeks unfolded, Enrique's presence in our home grew more constant, and his silence morphed into a tension that crackled in the air. He began to lash out at me over the smallest of matters, forgotten errands, mismatched socks, and trivial annoyances that seemed to swell and grow, taking on a life of their own. I attempted to dismiss it, convincing myself it was merely his method of adapting. Yet, deep down, I sensed the resentment brewing between us, dense and oppressive, like a tempest poised to unleash its fury. One evening, as laughter danced between Enrique and me on the couch, the door creaked open, and Mason stepped into the room, his presence shifting the air with an unspoken tension. He remained silent at first, simply standing there, his gaze fixed on us, an enigmatic expression playing across his features that left me unsettled. As I lifted my gaze to meet his eyes, a revelation washed over me. The pain, the fury, the turmoil that had been simmering just below the surface for weeks. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, he cut me off with his words. His voice quivered, a low murmur that sent shivers down the spine. "Do you still feel anything at all?" His words sliced through the air, sharp and unforgiving. Enrique's gaze met mine, a flicker of surprise crossing his features, yet my focus remained locked on Mason. "What are you saying?" I inquired, my voice unwavering, despite the frantic pounding of my heart. He edged forward, his fists tight and trembling at his sides. "You remain indifferent to my pain, to our connection, to the scars this journey has etched upon my soul." The room fell into an eerie hush, a palpable tension hanging in the air, as even Enrique remained frozen in place, his breath caught in his throat. I rose to my feet, heart pounding, my gaze locked onto Mason's face, desperate for any hint of understanding. "Mason, that's not true," I whispered, my voice barely breaking the silence. "Without a doubt, my feelings for you run deep." "Is this truly for me?" he fired back, his voice escalating with intensity. "What does any of this mean for me? You allowed this man to stride into our world as if he belonged here, without a care in the world. You sit there, sharing laughter with him, as if I'm nothing more than a shadow in the room." The air was suddenly ripped from my lungs, his words crashing into me with an unexpected force. "Mason," I called, my hand outstretched, but he recoiled, slipping away from my grasp just before our fingers could meet. "I had no idea you felt this way," I murmured, a mix of surprise and curiosity flooding my senses. "Of course you didn't," he spat, his voice laced with bitterness. "You're so focused on what you want that you don't see how this affects us. Do you even notice my presence anymore, or have I become merely a convenience to you?" The silence that enveloped the room was suffocating, a heavy shroud that pressed down on every soul present. Enrique shifted uneasily on the couch, his words barely a whisper as he spoke of needing space before he slipped out the door, leaving an air of tension behind him. I hardly registered it at all. My son stood before me, a fragile figure quaking with emotions I had overlooked for far too long. That night, after Mason stormed off to his room, I found myself alone in the living room, my gaze fixed on the empty coffee cup that Enrique had carelessly abandoned. His words echoed relentlessly in my mind, each repetition slicing deeper than the one before. He was right. I hadn't truly been thinking about him, not in the way that mattered. In trying to keep peace, I had been pretending this was normal when it clearly wasn't. Yet, in my obsession, I failed to consider the toll it was taking on him. For the first time in ages, the gravity of my decisions crashed down on me. The agreement I'd made with Mason, the boundaries we crossed. None of it was right. Things had gone too far. This wasn't just our private struggle anymore. Our actions were causing real damage. The night stretched on, an endless expanse of wakefulness. He sat there, eyes fixed on the door, a storm of thoughts swirling in his mind. Was there still a chance to mend what was broken? Or had the moment slipped away forever? The morning light crept through the windows, but the silence that enveloped the house was thick and suffocating, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions that had erupted just hours before. Mason remained in his room, the door shut tight, the atmosphere thick with unvoiced tension. I sat at the kitchen table, my gaze fixed on the coffee before me, the steam rising in delicate tendrils, shrouding my mind in a haze of uncertainty. The pull was too strong to resist any longer. A sense of urgency surged within me. I had to act and fast. Whatever this was, whatever we had twisted our relationship into, it couldn't continue down this path, neither for him nor for me. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, I approached his door and rapped my knuckles against the wood, anticipation thrumming in my veins. Silence hung in the air, thick and heavy, as I leaned my forehead against the cool wooden frame, anticipation coursing through me. "Mason, please. I need to talk to you," I whispered, my voice barely breaking the silence. At last, the door groaned open, revealing him in the dim light, his expression a fortress, eyes shadowed with the weight of fatigue. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice quaking with emotion, "for all that has transpired, for the blindness to the pain I've caused you, for allowing the shadows to stretch this far." In that moment, I realized the truth. I had been wrong. His expression remained steely, yet he moved aside, granting me entry into the unknown. I perched on the edge of his bed, the air thick with tension, as he leaned against the wall, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. Desperation clawed at my throat as I finally confessed. "We need help. We were in this together. The weight of uncertainty presses down on me, and I can no longer wear the mask of confidence. We stand at a crossroads, and I refuse to let us wander further into the unknown." I stumbled through a labyrinth of my own making, each misstep echoing in the shadows. Yet a flicker of hope remains within me, urging me to mend what I've broken, if only you would grant me the chance. Mason remained silent at first, his head slightly bowed, eyes locked onto the ground as if it held the weight of his thoughts. A few days later, we found ourselves in a cramped office, facing Ryan Carter, a family therapist I had discovered in the depths of the internet. Raphael exuded a quiet strength, his presence a soothing balm that wrapped around you like a warm blanket. In his company, silence felt like a refuge, a sanctuary where words were unnecessary, yet comfort lingered in the air. In the beginning, neither of us could see it. We lingered in silence, the burden of our tale pressing heavily upon us, too profound to articulate. Yet Raphael possessed a unique ability to shatter that stillness, posing questions that felt less like intrusions and more like beckoning calls. With each passing moment, Mason started to reveal the depths of his soul. He spoke of the deep loneliness that had enveloped him since the divorce, the swirling confusion that clung to our arrangement, and the simmering resentment that had taken root within him. I sat there, tears cascading down my cheeks, as his voice wove together the emotions I had buried deep within, feelings I could no longer deny. In the weeks that followed, therapy wove itself into the fabric of our daily lives. The journey was fraught with challenges. There were days when we stumbled out of the office, utterly spent, feeling as though we had entered a relentless cycle. Those were the days when doubt crept in, whispering if we were truly moving forward or merely treading water in a sea of uncertainty. Raphael guided us in establishing boundaries, true boundaries that would stand firm this time. I confronted Mason, declaring that our pact had come to an end, that it had been a grave error, and that it was time for us to begin anew. Initially, he found himself grappling with the overwhelming changes around him. There were times when I glimpsed him slipping back into familiar patterns, his frustration surging forth, manifesting as anger or tears. Yet under Raphael's watchful eye, we unearthed paths to resilience, discovering healthier ways to navigate the storm within. Mason embarked on a journey of self-discovery through journaling, a pursuit I never imagined he would embrace. He also stepped into the world of martial arts, where he unearthed a powerful outlet for the tumult of his emotions. Gradually, I witnessed his transformation unfold before my eyes. He straightened his posture, his voice resonating with newfound assurance, and ventured beyond the confines of home, forging bonds that no longer relied on my presence. The most daunting challenge lay in confronting my own reflection, truly confronting the depths of who I was. In the dimly lit room, therapy became a crucible, compelling me to face the haunting choices I had made. Each session peeled back the layers of my fears and insecurities, revealing how they had woven themselves into the very fabric of my relationship with Mason. In my desperate attempt to cling to him, to mend the gaping wound the divorce had carved into my heart, I failed to recognize the way it was slowly choking the life out of us both. Releasing that grip on control, embracing the uncertainty of trusting in his ability to stand alone, became one of the most challenging battles I have ever faced. As the sun began its descent, casting a warm glow across the sky, Mason and I found ourselves on the porch, the air thick with the weight of unspoken thoughts. It had been months since our first therapy session, and the evening held a sense of anticipation, as if the fading light was about to unveil something profound. He turned his gaze toward me, his eyes filled with gratitude, and whispered, "Thanks, Mom, for everything." It may have seemed small, but it held a weight of significance that was undeniable. I reached over and squeezed his hand, a simple gesture that resonated deeply, conveying emotions that words could never capture. The journey of discovery continues, each step revealing new mysteries yet to be unraveled. Healing is a winding journey, filled with unexpected twists and turns. The chaos swirls around, tangled and intricate, each setback a shadow lurking in the corners of the journey. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, a flicker of hope ignites within me. Mason is navigating his path, and I am too. Though the shadows of our past mistakes may linger, we are discovering how to forge ahead side by side. Life unfolds without a guide, and if it ever had one, I likely discarded it ages ago. Mason and I have faced trials beyond my wildest dreams, yet against all odds, we remain here, undaunted, striving, and ever evolving. The house carries a new essence, a sense of buoyancy that hangs in the air. Perhaps a profound sense of tranquility emerges when we realize we are on the path to something greater. Mason has discovered his place in the world. He immerses himself in the company of friends, diving deeper into his own passions. When our paths finally intersect, it's as if we're strangers, two souls meeting anew rather than entangled in the chaotic web of a relationship we never truly grasped. We still share our moments, of course. Healing may not be flawless, yet it signifies a journey forward. It has been a profound journey of confronting my own reflection. In the shadows of my past, I discovered the power of forgiveness, a fragile yet liberating force that allowed me to release the heavy chains of guilt that had bound me for far too long. I've come to realize that not everything can be mended, and at times the most profound act of love is to take a step back, allowing those dear to us to navigate their own paths and discover their own solutions. The journey has been fraught with challenges, yet a sense of pride swells within me as I reflect on the strides we've taken, not merely as a mother and son, but as two individuals rediscovering the delicate threads of respect and trust that bind us together once more. From everything I've experienced, one truth stands out above the rest: the undeniable significance of true boundaries. They transcend mere rules. They are profound acts of love. True care means respecting both others and yourself. They serve as the shield for what you hold dear, creating space for growth, fostering understanding, and nurturing connection. In the depths of my journey, I discovered that accountability holds a weight as heavy as forgiveness. There are moments when the most daunting challenge is to confront the truth of our own mistakes. Yet it is also the most liberating. To all who can hear me, I have something important to share. Your mistakes do not determine your identity. Your true essence emerges in the moments that follow your fall. In the way you rise, confront those you've wronged, and forge ahead into the unknown. Growth is not a quest for perfection. It is a daring journey into the unknown, a willingness to embrace change, even when fear grips your heart and pain lingers in your soul. Always in the midst of discovery, it seems we are destined to navigate the complexities of life endlessly. Such is the way of existence. For the first time in years, we're beginning to find solid ground through therapy and honesty. We are forging a new path, one that promises to be better and healthier. I have faith that we will continue to advance side by side, no matter the challenges ahead. Imagine, if you will, the moment when everything you know shatters into a million pieces. What would you do when your world crumbles around you, just as mine has? What path will you choose to take next? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this tale stirred your emotions, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more captivating stories. Until we meet again in the next video.